Humans have a fundamental need for predictability and control. We build mental models of the world to understand how it works, to anticipate future events, and to guide our behavior. During periods of rising international tensions, people live with the specter of conflict, but no one is sure about whether it will actually happen. The whole world is in a state of uncertainty. Uncertainty is a fundamental and uncomfortable aspect of the human experience. People can adapt to known dangers and develop coping strategies, but uncertainty leaves them in a state of perpetual preparedness, unable to fully commit to either defensive action or relaxation. When faced with uncertainty, the human mind relies on cognitive shortcuts or biases to make sense of the situation and is more likely to interpret it as threatening. This collective uncertainty creates a shared psychological state that has profound implications for interpersonal relationships. As international tensions rise, people constantly ask, will conflict actually occur? If so, when? How severe will it be? How will it affect me and my loved ones? These unanswered questions create a cognitive burden that occupies significant mental resources. Driven by a fundamental human need to understand threats and reduce uncertainty, individuals engage in intense information-seeking behavior. Media consumption increases dramatically, with individuals spending more time reading news, watching news broadcasts, and discussing current events. It helps people understand the situation, coordinate collective responses, and feel a sense of control in the face of threat. However, it also has significant costs. News media, particularly during periods of international tension, tends to emphasize dramatic and threatening information while downplaying reassuring information. This creates a media environment that systematically amplifies threat perception and anxiety. The result is that conversations increasingly become dominated by threat-related topics. Family dinners, workplace interactions, and casual social encounters become opportunities to discuss military buildups, diplomatic crises, economic impacts, and casualty predictions. While such conversations can serve important functions in helping people process anxiety and coordinate responses, they also create an environment of pervasive dread in which normal, everyday conversations about non-threatening topics become increasingly rare. Individuals become less able to engage in the kind of casual, everyday conversation that maintains social bonds. Discussions about hobbies, entertainment, personal achievements, and other non-threatening topics seem trivial or inappropriate when war looms. This narrowing of conversational topics can create emotional distance between people, even when they are physically close. Additionally, the shift toward threat-focused cognition affects how people interpret ambiguous social information. A neutral comment from a partner or colleague is more likely to be interpreted as hostile or critical. A delay in responding to a message is interpreted as rejection or anger. This tendency toward threat-biased interpretation can create misunderstandings and conflict even in previously stable relationships. Despite these challenges, social connection and emotional support provide crucial protective effects against the harmful impacts of anticipatory anxiety. Individuals who maintain strong relationships and have access to emotional support show lower levels of anxiety and better psychological outcomes when facing uncertain threats. With limited or contradictory information and uncertainty about the future, a vacuum of knowledge is created. People fill this vacuum with speculation, rumors, and worst-case scenarios. Social media amplifies this tendency, allowing rumors to spread rapidly through networks and reach millions of people within hours. The proliferation of rumors creates significant challenges for interpersonal communication. When different people are exposed to different rumors and speculations, they may develop fundamentally incompatible understandings of the situation. A parent who believes rumors about imminent war may make decisions about evacuation or resource hoarding, while an adult child who has been exposed to different information may view these decisions as panicked overreactions. These divergent understandings can create profound communication breakdowns and interpersonal conflict. As international tensions rise, public opinion becomes increasingly polarized. Some people advocate for military preparedness and strong responses to the threat, while others advocate for diplomacy and de-escalation. This polarization extends into personal relationships. Families become divided when members hold different views about how to respond to the rising tensions. Friendships become strained when people discover that their friends hold different political views about the conflict. Workplaces become tense as colleagues with different perspectives find it difficult to interact. The result is a fragmentation of social networks along ideological lines, reduced capacity for dialogue across different perspectives, and accelerated and amplified existing social divisions. People who share the same views about the potential conflict, or who belong to the same national, ethnic, or ideological group, often experience increased sense of connection and shared purpose. This in-group solidarity can facilitate collective action and mutual support. However, this in-group solidarity often comes at the cost of increased suspicion and hostility toward outgroups. People who hold different views about the conflict, or who belong to different national or ethnic groups, are increasingly viewed with suspicion. The question, "Whose side are you on?" becomes increasingly salient, and people who refuse to clearly align with one side or the other may be viewed as untrustworthy or disloyal. Despite these challenges, communities that successfully maintain dialogue across ideological and group lines, that develop shared preparedness plans, and that prioritize collective welfare over individual advantage can emerge from the anticipatory phase with strengthened social bonds and enhanced capacity to respond to future challenges. This potential for collective resilience depends on several factors. First, communities need leadership that emphasizes common humanity and shared interests rather than division and conflict. Second, they need access to accurate information and protection from propaganda and misinformation. Third, they need opportunities for dialogue and relationship building across group lines. Fourth, they need institutional support for collective action and mutual aid. Political and institutional leaders play a crucial role in shaping how societies respond to the uncertain times. Leaders who emphasize common humanity, acknowledge legitimate concerns, and promote dialogue tend to foster more moderate public responses and maintain social cohesion. Conversely, leaders who emphasize threat, dehumanize potential adversaries, and promote polarization tend to foster more hostile public responses and fragment social cohesion. In face of uncertainty, the challenge before us is to recognize the distinctive psychological and social dynamics, and to actively work to maintain the bonds of human connection, the integrity of institutions, and the possibility of peaceful resolution even as international tensions rise. This requires commitment from individuals to maintain empathy and critical thinking, from communities to foster dialogue and mutual support, and from leaders to prioritize human connection over conflict escalation. Only through such multifaceted efforts can we hope to preserve the social fabric during this critical period.